GAA Podcast on RTE.ie, sponsored by Optimum Nutrition. No matter your goal, if you're putting it in, we'll help you get more out. Optimum Nutrition, the official performance nutrition partner of the Gaelic Players Association.
Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last two matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Hello, welcome to the RTE GAA Podcast. Mikey Stafford here, filling in for Jackie Hurley. Herself and Rory are both on Euro 2024 duty this week, so you're stuck with me and McCoy for today anyway. But thankfully, we've been joined by Ciarán Whelan and Enda McGinley, so all is right with the world. Is everybody well?
Super. All good.
Yeah, okay. Speak now if you have any problems. You don't. That's good. We'll crack on. It was the final weekend of the group stages of the All-Ireland Football Championship. The group stages, which I think most people would say they're happy enough to see in the rearview mirror. And we had the draw this morning, which has thrown up Mayo v Derry. Mayo being at home this weekend. Louth v Cork. Louth being at home / in a neighbouring county. Tyrone v Roscommon. Tyrone at home. And Galway v Monaghan. So we'll just have a quick chat about the draw before we look back on at the weekend's games. And the Mayo Derry stands out as the fixture, I suppose, as much by just because of the team's reputations over the last couple of seasons rather than anything to do with form, because on form, going by Derry's performance against Westmeath and going by Mayo's rather decent performance against Dublin, you can only see one winner from that one.
You can only see one winner, but then it is Mayo, and so you can't completely bet the house on them. Derry have got their win to stem the blood that they've been that they've been letting really badly over the previous games. They looked nervy and unsure of themselves. They got there. I've not seen Mickey Hart look as nervous or as anxious on a sideline. Maybe it was just the moments that the camera panned to him, but they're a team that's struggling at the minute. Would they have been happier heading to Mayo than taking on Tyrone Louth? Probably. Was both a Tyrone or Louth draw would have brought significant subplots. But they've got a crack against Derry. I think they'll feel as if they've got a fighter. But it all depends how the mood truly is within the camp, how much belief they genuinely have of mounting a challenge for the All-Ireland title, or deep down in the back of their subconscious is there a collective feeling of let's get this year over with. And I know only Derry will tell. If Derry somehow manage to round up the troops and find a real cause to go after here in this Mayo game, then we know they're capable of great football, but they look well off it at the minute. Does that rule them out? No, but the likelihood you would expect is a Mayo victory. If Derry come through it, it'll be an amazing turnaround job, but it's just hard to see.
Yeah. Well, the other point, I suppose, when you look at the draw, and it was one that Jarlath Burns highlighted on Morning Ireland on Radio 1 this morning, you've got three teams going out next weekend in the preliminary quarterfinal of the Ireland Football Championship who have won one game out of four in the championship this year. And Jarlath Burns then himself, not for the first time, has kind of had a cut off the current football structure. He says it lacks jeopardy, and we're kind of not getting bang for our buck. And I think most people would agree, playing off 24 games to get rid of four teams, and we have a few more teams limping into preliminary quarterfinals this weekend. People are we want to say the championship starts now, but you're looking at a few of those fixtures and saying that they're probably foregone conclusions. So this whole, 24 games, get rid of four teams, and then another 4 games to get to the actual quarterfinals. I can see Jarlath Burns' point myself, as much as I hate tinkering with the championship constantly.
Yeah, and I think it's got to be welcome, Mikey, because this format was brought in maybe for I think 3 years was the agreement on it, and I think it's a healthy position when the president of the GAA can take. I'm very honest and say, okay, this is not working. This is a format that, people are voting with their feet. It's not catching life. There's no jeopardy involved. And I think they're positive comments, because it definitely means we're going to get probably a change next year. And I definitely think some of the proposals that are being discussed at the various regional meetings that they're having around the kind of keeping the provincial finalists, and then the 7 top teams in the league, and then the Tailteann Cup winners, and having a kind of a one back door system playoff where there will be jeopardy in every game, and you'll get your one chance. If you're knocked out, you'll get a second chance. And I think that will be a good move. It also probably reduces the amount of games. It gives another week in the calendar. He's also talking about pushing out the calendar maybe a couple of weeks, letting it breathe, because I think clearly one thing that's evident from the last few weeks, you can see many managers saying the challenges of week on week, the injuries, like even look at Mayo going in next week. Like it's more of a mental challenge nearly than a physical challenge, and kind of coming back, putting yesterday to bed, getting ready for next week. And like I'd agree with Enda there. I think it's a very dangerous fixture for them. I think Derry's spirit looked broken to me the other night. They scored 2-7. I thought they were really poor, sloppy in a lot of their play, and they look like a team really lacking on confidence. But we've seen in the past, Kerry teams come through the qualifiers. We've seen Tyrone come through the qualifiers where, there's been games where they looked, off, and something can spark. Sometimes you can get that spark and get that energy back, and get that confidence back. And I think Derry are definitely brittle, and I think Mayo have to put them to the sword, but they can't give them any energy, because if they give them energy and they grow in confidence on Saturday, they have the ability. We know they have the ability, but it looks highly unlikely at the moment. But yeah, getting back to your other point, that Galway are going to put the sword to Monaghan and finish them off. I think Roscommon is a dangerous opponent for Tyrone. I thought Tyrone were excellent the other night against Cork. Particularly Canavans and Matty Donnelly and Niall Morgan, but Roscommon probably a better inside forwards and a better forward line than Cork do, and that could be a tricky game for Tyrone. And then listen, Cork and Louth, they played regularly, and there's been very little in it, so that one is going to be a close encounter as well. But yeah, listen, we're kicking off. It's the real Jeopardy starts from next weekend.
Yeah, Niall, I suppose we're not massive fans of the group stage, but and the Jeopardy is lacking. But the one thing there's so little knockout, but the week off at this stage of the year seems to be so valuable. Jim McGinley said it after Donegal made mincemeat declare 223 to 5 points, but that wouldn't have been enough if the Cork and Tyrone game had gone another way for him. So he was very, very relieved to get the week off. Dublin and Kerry would have expected the week off, but couldn't. They had to make sure they got it done. And then Armagh, your own side, they got it as well by the bare minimum, same as Dublin. But that is a big prize. A week off, a fortnight of no competitive action is a big carrot at this time of the year.
It is, and we've obviously very small sample size to go on, but 3 of the 4 group winners last year advanced from the quarterfinals. Armagh losing on penalties, so
as they do,
as they seem to enjoy doing. I was just delighted, yes, a match that went to a draw that wasn't able to go to penalties. But yeah, it is, and to touch on it there, the lads, it's probably the mental, because the mental sort of break you get, because the teams are going to be training obviously and still at it, but just that mental switch off for a week where you can sort of just refresh minds and things. And you could flip it and say teams that win these preliminary quarterfinals have a bit of momentum, but in truth, they should be running pretty much on empty, and you're really risking yourself at injuries and different things. So it remains to be seen, but you certainly are at a big advantage. And just I done a quick wee maths there on the 4 teams that are going through in 3rd place. Between them, they've played 17 championship matches this year and have won 5. So 5 championship wins from 17. And we've had 2 seasons now where we've had really good round 3s, final round 3. All the drama, yes. We had the year before with that group with Galway, Armagh, Tyrone, Westmeath, literally going down to the last kick in both matches. So we've had the perfect sort of near perfect finishes 2 years in a row, and it's still, we're all sitting in the green going, yeah, this has to change. So fair play to Jarlath. I think a lot of different presidents might have said, well, we'll see how we go after 3 years. We'll give it a 3-year trial and see what happens. But it's quite clear it's changing. So it's going to change next year. So, maybe that's the man me, but fair play to them.
Yeah, I think the fact that we've had 2 really good final years, we can fully understand where the group designing these proposals came up with them. and they've been vindicated in the lack of dead rubbers and all of the sort of different permutations you could have. But even with that, it still hasn't really caught on. I think the biggest takeaway for me is it really highlights how much of a bandwagon we really all are in terms of summer GAA.
How dare you?
The whole thing is you want the bandwagon. You want that thing of the counties getting on a run, then it slowly builds and builds and builds, and you have another team coming the other direction, they're building and building, and then there's a big clash in both sets of supporters. But when that bandwagon gets a battering at the start of the year, then gets another couple of defeats, nobody's really interested in jumping on board what looks like a jalopy at this stage of the year, if you know what I mean. So we want teams to have momentum, and increasingly the old score system looks probably fair enough. I suppose from an Ulster point of view, the issue there is it really punishes those teams coming out from tough provincial campaigns, because you're going to be in there. It's going to be cutthroat. There's going to be probably 6 other Ulster teams in there, or probably 5 maybe, a couple down in the Talton, and they're going to cut lumps out of each other, while the big competitors, the likes of Dublin and Kerry, move serenely through their provincial campaigns into a safe quarter-final slot. So the group stage was a way of sort of evening that out, and in a way it almost did. You could have seen Dublin into the preliminary round qualifier yesterday. It didn't happen, but again, I think it just hasn't caught fire. It has hit the GAA where it feels it the most. The pocket, the feet through the gates just hasn't been there, and they need to change it rather than have a long, slow death.
And that's a good point about momentum. Like, you're looking at the last 12 teams and the 4 winners, obviously, but then you go through the 8 other teams. A lot of them are going in not feeling great about themselves. Tyrone possibly after the recovery from the match up in Ballybuffet, but after that, like, you're looking even at the 4 second place, Galway on a low, Louth on a low, Mayo on a low after results at the weekend. Then the other side of the draw, we know how many losses and draws between there. No one's going in feeling really good about themselves. So it's a good point there, and it's just that lack of momentum and that lack of build.
But funny, I was looking last year, there was 3 away victories in the prelim quarterfinals. Monaghan, Tyrone and Mayo all won in away games. But Galway last year, Donegal were obviously a wreck this time last year. Kildare obviously were a wreck this time last year. Monaghan beat them, Tyrone beat Donegal. Whereas this year, for me, Mayo, Galway, Tyrone, 3 home games. I think those 3 teams will be happy enough with where they are. Yes, they've had a few disappointments, but the way they played against Galway, yes, they'll be still the provincial final. It wasn't a bad performance against Armagh. They know they're missing a couple of key players. If they can come back, I think they'll feel there's still a summer there for them. Mayo, again, really credible performance again. So those 3 teams for me have momentum, and I think momentum is the key here. Derry, Monaghan, Roscommon, I don't see much momentum there. So I think where last year with 3 away victories, I think we'll have 3 home victories. The Louth v Cork one's very hard to call for me.
Well, that's an away victory either way, because Louth can't play it at home. So you're on a winner either way. Okay, let's get into the games a little bit, and let's start with Dublin and Mayo, 17 points apiece in the Hyde. A rare non-victory for Mayo in the Hyde, as Lee Keegan pointed out. Their good record there stems from the fact that they're normally playing Roscommon. Lee Keegan loves having sniper Roscommon in his column. It's great fun. I was going to say to you, Wheelo, that you could argue one of the most significant games of the weekend was a game very few people saw in Mullingar, this quote-unquote sandbox game where they're looking for, all these rules are being trialed. We won't discuss that now. You had a good chat with Eamon about it yesterday on the Sunday Game Live. But you do occasionally see from a team, and Dublin are actually one of the most common examples, how there's not a lot wrong with Gaelic football when you choose to play it the way you can choose it. Dublin needed a score in 30 seconds. Stephen Cookson kicks the ball out. Ciarán Kilkenny makes a catch for the ages. Zach McCaffrey works the ball up the field, and they get their score from Cormac Costello. It just showed, there's the game can be played in a very exciting, attacking manner when you need to do it. The problem is it only really comes in the last 5 minutes of games when there's that sense of urgency.
Yeah, listen, we know there's still a lot of quality out there, Mikey, and you can get great games, but the way tactics have evolved and the way teams set players can definitely lead to periods of play where it can be a pretty much dour. And I think a lot of the stuff the lads are looking at, in fairness, they've looked at it very, very quickly, and they all favour the person in possession of the ball and keeping the game flowing as quickly as possible. And I think that's usually positive. I think there's exciting things to come in that regard. But yesterday's game was like, credit to Mayo where it's due in terms they came out and they were, as they've always done, they've gone man to man with Dublin and they were very brave in their approach and pushed right up and tried to pressure them all the way out the field. And I think, even the fact that Dublin possibly learned even from the league final against Derry where they got caught on their kickouts, they conceded the kickout which in the second half, which you very seldom see Dublin do. So that was definitely a tactic that they probably feared Mayo could get one over the top and get at them the way they were playing. But it was a brilliant game end to end. It really opened up in the second half. There was plenty of mistakes. It was a typical championship match. There was plenty of turnovers, particularly Dublin in that third quarter in the middle of the park turned over the ball a good bit. Mayo forced them into the errors and they were very clinical up front. They got through that third quarter and we went man to man with them. And Mayo invested a lot of energy into yesterday. You could see the disappointment. Kevin McStay was distraught after the match that, he even said it in his post-match interview, Kilkenny plucks the ball out of the air, should have been fouled straight away. That was his kind of reaction. But in fairness, Kilkenny got it away very quickly to Jack McCaffrey, and then there was no catching Jack McCaffrey. And then even Cormac Costello had a hell of a lot to do when he slipped to get that hand pass with his left hand up over the bar. So, Dublin showed character. It definitely wasn't their best performance, and probably, they're not that far ahead of the pack. And maybe after the Kerry League game, people thought Dublin were going to cruise to All-Ireland. They're maybe not as strong. There's a few weaknesses there in the back line. They got turned a few times in the first phase of attacks, and Mayo, when they ran at them, caused them a bit of difficulty. So overall, listen, it was a brilliant game. It was, I think, bringing it out of Croke Park definitely added to the occasion. You nearly had a full crowd. It actually felt like a home game for Mayo. You could see actually within Mayo were very comfortable in the Hyde and they played there regularly, and you could see they were a lot more comfortable. There was a bit of confidence about them. A lot of people have been talking down Mayo for the year so far, that didn't really know how they were set up, how were they going, how were they approaching the game. But they will take a lot from yesterday. It will actually, the confidence, the boost that they can take from their performance moving forward, and they've kind of stay away from Dublin now, and it's really their challenge now is possibly a 6-day turnaround. Get through next weekend is the key thing. If they can finish Derry off, then they'll go into the quarter-final, as the lads have said, with that momentum. And on the other side of that, Dessie Farrell's going to learn a hell of a lot. What a test for Dublin, because I don't think they had no real test since the league final. And it definitely allows him, there's plenty that he can work on moving forward. So I think both teams will come out of it with a lot of positivity yesterday.
Yeah, and for Mayo, there is definitely holding Dublin to 17 points. Now it's still a decent score in total, obviously, but there was no goal, crucially. And so it's a relatively, that Mayo defense has been overhauled in the last few years, basically, and through injury this year, obviously it's even greener. But you're playing whack-a-mole with Dublin. You hold Con O'Callaghan to a point. And Cormac Costello scores 7 and 4 from a point. I don't think he's bad. Dublin were a bit off, and they will gain from it. But even when Dublin are off, the depth of kind of that they have, particularly in the forwards, it's still there, and it's still frightening. The team, you can, Con O'Callaghan will be your focus coming in, and Cormac Costello goes and plays the way he played.
Yeah, absolutely. It is history repeating itself, isn't it? With the depressing sight of the Dublin subs coming on whenever you think you're doing well, and you have certain men sort of curtailed, and then you see this boys coming on from the line. But Dublin will improve whenever they get back to their home comforts, obviously, in Croke Park. It's always a bit difficult whenever they're out. Whelan was saying Mayo was comfortable in the Hyde. They only play there 3 times a year. Dublin play in Croke Park how many times a year? Anyway, so they will undoubtedly be much more comfortable when they're back in their home patch. And then Mayo takes great delight for a true man to say this, but Mayo lacked Dublin's cynicism in dealing with that last play, obviously, as Kevin McStay pointed out. It just had to be stopped, and I have no doubt at all. And Dublin done it in the All-Ireland final many years ago. last kick out, crucial play. It was stopped. It wasn't pretty, but it was stopped, and it was a crucial thing in that gap week. I think. Funny, I was thinking about today, would it really have been much of an issue for Dublin to play a preliminary quarter-final? I think it would have been a good additional test for them. I don't think they would have minded. I think Mayo would have gained massively from the additional week. Dublin, I think, would have been fine either way, to be frank, but I think Mayo have definitely missed a gain from that. But for them, the loss of Paddy Durcan was massive. I think they'll take good confidence from yesterday, thinking, okay, we have dealt with that blow, we've rejigged things. And they still had strong players coming in off the bench yesterday too, and had a couple of additional injuries yesterday, like Jeremy O'Connor wasn't fit to the game. So they will be happy with where they're at. I think they look a more solid team in many ways this year than last year. Obviously last year they had the big league and there was a huge wave of momentum and hype around that stage, and then it crashed and burned in the Connacht Championship, and then they did the huge performance against Kerry, and then they didn't follow it up, so they were sort of up and down all over the place. I get a more solid sense from them this year, to be honest. But big game against Derry, and they have to nail that, and then they'll feel they'll be in with a chance with any of the other 4 quarter-finalists. I think they'll feel they can give any of them a game.
Yeah, Niall, it was an interesting piece by Eamon O'Donoghue on the RTE website yesterday, just talking about Ryan O'Donoghue and Cillian O'Connor, and the fact the younger man is a very, very reliable free taker, but Cillian O'Connor offers you more, especially from distance. He's more comfortable, and just like he's top scorer in championship history. He came on with 15 minutes to go yesterday. He didn't get a score. He didn't influence games as much as you'd like, and I think there was hope in Mayo that he was back to fitness, and even 70 minutes might have been possible for him. But the fact that he only got 15 minutes at the end, the 2 weeks would have done a lot for Cillian O'Connor. You wonder how much a week will do for him, and how much do you think Mayo need him? If scoring ability, obviously his ability to defend from the front, but just the experience. Himself and Aidan O'Shea up there gives you an awful lot of experience and calm heads.
Yeah. I think we have to be realistic what we can expect from him, coming back and with so many miles on the clock and doing so much over the years for the team. It's a bit similar to Conor McMahon, I suppose, up in Monaghan, that you have to sort of accept that these boys can't go on at that top level forever. They do seem to be getting a few forwards into form at a good stage of the season, though. There's so much good play from Aidan O'Shea. Yes, there's Tommy Conroy to really sort of find the move. O'Donoghue's been shooting the lights out pretty much from the Bronx right the whole way through. So, like a lot of teams, you can make a really good argument for their forward line being really, really strong. Even your Roscommons, your Armaghs, but the only thing, and the boys talk about teams being up and down, they're in that bracket where you're just not confident on what they're going to do one week to the next. And I don't think it's a cert that they get over Derry, to be honest with you. And Derry have been horrendous, and they were as bad probably at the weekend. They're not much better than they have been, but I think it was the perfect draw for Derry, just to find out one way or another. And anyone thinking this would be easy, I just don't necessarily agree. And maybe that's, I don't know, blind faith in what Derry are doing earlier in the season. But I do think Mayo need to be very careful about this fixture, even with home advantage. Remember the last time they played Derry at home in the qualifier? I remember Benny Tierney was a co-commentator. So that was a few years ago now, but it was meant to be a really easy day for Mayo, and I think it went to extra time that day. It was a bit of a crazy fixture. So when Mayo's involved, there's a bit of case theory always playing, and who knows. But there's a lot of forwards sort of coming at the right stage. So happy enough.
Let's talk about Derry then, Whelan, because for an hour, it wasn't looking good against Westmeath, and they needed a couple of goals. Emma Bradley and Conor McCluskey came up with the goals, which kind of, it's not unfair to say got them out of jail. It was chalk and cheese from Derry of the league to the Derry that we saw on Saturday, which is the Derry we've been seeing all through the championship. They're just lacking a spark. Injury has taken its toll, but you have to go back to late January and wonder, what was the benefit of bringing the Glen lads in for that opening round of the league when you get to this stage of the year, and these lads looks like they're on their feet.
Yeah, I did, but definitely get a sense, Mikey, the issues are broader than that. I think.
Yeah, it's not just physical.
Yeah, the impact of the games, where the concession of goals, Donegal and Armagh, like that. It's just, you can just get a sense that there's a broken spirit within the camp watching them. And, as I said, that can spark on the field, but, what we're so used to seeing Derry in terms of, okay, they probably set up pretty similar. They were a little bit more maybe conservative, making sure Oran Lynch was back. And I think there was maybe one time they nearly got Claplown O'Toole under the stands. They nearly got at them. But it was more in the final third, those line runnings, the easy scores they would usually cut in and pick off. Shane McGuigan's form is really bad, turnovers, sloppy play, dropping it short, all the things you associate with a team that is just not on the same page. I thought when the Conor McCluskey goal went in though, you could see there was a little bit of bounce before half time, and you were kind of thinking, that's why I think they're a dangerous opponent, because it can spark. And listen, I played on Dublin teams in the past that we went through our struggles and qualifiers, and you can get a bit of a bounce on the pitch, but the real test of resilience is when something goes against you and you can see the goal, or you go behind again and the wheels come off. And I think that's going to be Derry's biggest test, at the weekend. That can Mayo put those doubts in their head early doors, get a goal, get ahead of them, and the wheels could come off, or alternatively they could get something positive and build and grow into the game. So that's why I think it's a dangerous fixture from my view.
Yeah. No offense to Westmeath, who have shown in the last couple of years, Enda, that they can go so with the in the group stage, even if it doesn't fruitless thus far. But like, are we? Is there hope more than anything that we want Derry to be a big player in the championship? Because really, a Westmeath team where John Heslin was held scoreless, like, caused them a serious amount of bother. Now, it wasn't like this would really had us on the edge of our seats, as in, oh, are we getting a shock here, until that late goal. So are we, as Niall says, are we being a little bit hopeful here that Derry might spark? Or do you think that there's hope for them at all?
I suppose one thing to recognise is how impressive Westmeath have been in terms of the job Desi Dolan has done there. Like, they have just had no luck the 2 years of the group format. They have just pulled the group of death both years in a row, and performed hugely credibly in both times, and been really unlucky not to get through. So Westmeath are a very difficult opponent, and lots of teams have found that. Higher ranking teams have found that against Westmeath. But Niall's right. Like, if Derry, a la mid-March, Derry played Westmeath, you'd be expecting a double-digit victory for Derry. They would have just walked over the top of them. And that confidence, that swagger that they were playing with has been shot to pieces. Like, one thing was really noticeable. My brother was at the game, and he was saying they were still pushing up. They were still really high lines. Oran Lynch was right up, and you were looking now every now and then that maybe Chris McCaig had dropped back, or maybe one had dropped back. But now, whenever I was watching the game, you could just see a constant nervy looking over the shoulders for whoever was the back man, was just looking over. It was like a person doing their driving test, really overemphasizing the looking in the both mirrors to show, I am looking, I am checking, have we got cover at the back? But I don't think Westmeath had the tools just to maybe get those key turnovers and challenge that, because Derry were still being brave and still getting up the pitch. But it is a confidence trick, and for me, at this stage of the championship, Wheelo was touching on it there. At this stage of the championship, it is such a test of your collective belief, your collective ability to go to the well together, of ride out strong periods in games, mistakes in games, bad decisions by the referee, bits of luck for the opposition, an injury. There is so much comes at you in a 70-minute of a championship game, and it is a squad that has full belief, full ability to think together on the pitch and work themselves out of it, full belief in what's happening on the sideline. All of that is part and parcel of the tests that teams face at this time of year. And like Wheelo, I can absolutely see Derry mounting a challenge, but it's saying whenever they hit those setbacks mid-game, how deep is that belief at the minute? How together is that togetherness at the minute? Can Derry win this game? Absolutely, but they need for me, the only way they come through this game is if a couple of things really just go their way. Mayo might have a bad day in front of the posts. Derry might get one or two fortuitous breaks, and then in that scenario, they could absolutely have enough to see them home. And then with that, you never know what they could build. But if Mayo play well in this game or really, really challenge Derry, I just struggle to see Derry where they're at the minute, having that collective resolve and that collective spirit to ride out those challenges that you face in a big championship game. But only time will tell.
And who'd have thought we'd be saying that about Derry, 3 or 4 months ago, that we'd be worried about their spirit. Let's move on to your own county, Niall. You made a rare trip to Sligo to get a nice picture of Ben Bulbin, or did you enjoy your trip?
Beautiful county, beautiful. I was trying to work out last time. I was down in Armagh, and I think it might have been a league match back in the mid-90s. It's been a long time, but lovely ground.
Ben Bulbin unchanged since the mid-90s.
Yeah, still the same. Yeah.
So,
I got a few messages about how the Sunday game ignored Armagh last night, and I was sort of like, I didn't want them to talk about Armagh. They were that bad. Like, they were really, really awful. The big question mark over this Armagh team constantly is, can they back it up? Can they back it up? And for 50 minutes, yes, like Enda, you were there, it was awful stuff. Like, they were really, really lacking in intensity. I was standing behind Conor Gilligan, the coach, on the line, and he was pulling his hair out, trying to get them to be firmer in their press, be more energetic. They just had no spark about them. And a bit like that Galway 2022 comeback where Conor Gleeson made a couple of errors at the end. It needed a mistake, and suddenly all bets are off. The game gets pulled left, right, and centre, and that's really only where Armagh can function, where everything's going a bit crazy, and they really, really sort of, you can just see them growing it. But listen, good character. Most times Armagh lose that game. I've seen Armagh play really, really well and miss out on some good prizes and moral victory. So I'll take it, them not playing well and getting it. But the one thing I would note, the last play, which had some superb handling, the last 3 players to touch it were Oisin O'Neill, Aidan Nugent, and then Soupy Campbell, 3 subs. So one thing for sure is Armagh might be a player or two short from being a top team, but they have a hell of a squad there, even with a few injuries. And that's one thing that's really become apparent this year. And it was the bench probably that got them over the line there. Well, got the draw that they needed, but
no, and you didn't get into the dressing room at half time to find out what was going on there for.
Well, when I got the half an hour here, and I had a wee walk in and just and then Geezer gave me a look and I walked back out. So
yeah, Paul Fitzpatrick has in the Irish Times today, supposedly you get fined €80 for every minute over 15 minutes, and at club level you get fined a tenner for every minute over 10 minutes that you stay in. So there'll be an invoice dropping into the Armagh County Board office now during the week. I was interested that Wheeler, what Enda was saying there kind of about the wing mirrors with Derry, and it reminded me of something that Owen Doyle said on the soccer podcast. He was talking about Shamrock Rovers and the trouble they've had replacing their goalkeeper, and he kind of said, even as a striker, when he was playing as a professional footballer, he said, if you didn't have faith in your goalkeeper, it permeated through the whole team, and it made you just nervous, it made you shaky. And I'm only bringing it up now because I think in Armagh, wasn't good to watch, but in Blaine Hughes and their whole defence, you just get a sense of a team that's very, very comfortable in a low block, shall we, to stick with the soccer parlance, to kind of defensively. And this is the problem we've had with Armagh for a couple of years, is they seem to have trouble blending what is a very, very good forward line with a very, very solid defensive system.
Yeah, and I'm not, seen a good bit of Armagh, and they can mix it up, and it wasn't, I think yesterday, wasn't that the fact that I know they're saying dropping back into that low block, but it was more their work rate, and it was more there was times when they were pushed up, but they weren't getting contact. They were at half pace. They were kind of strolling. It was you could see what they were trying to do. They just weren't implementing what they were being asked to do, and they weren't bringing any intensity to it. I do think, Mikey, they do have a little bit of a good balance. That I think Galway got really well in the first half yesterday in that they conceded a kick out, so they didn't have that long kick out option, and they didn't turn over the ball. They didn't give Armagh fuel to go at them with those fast attacks and counter attacks. Very, very good at when they do move by foot and they keep good players in the link zone and they get at them. Galway, that's one of Galway's strengths is keeping possession, and they don't mind how long they keep it. They'll work it, and they generally their number of turnovers is generally low. And I think that starved Armagh possession in that first half, and that combined with the lack of intensity. Like, they won ugly yesterday, there's no doubt about it. It was an ugly, and that they won, they drew ugly yesterday. They managed to get back into it. And Pádraig Joyce, I think he said on the afterwards, he said in his 5-year tenure, he said they've never conceded a goal off a short kick out. And if you look back, Galway were always, Conor Gleeson was always generally, a large percentage of his kick outs over the last few years would go long. And they look back on those, particularly with the win, and say, why did we give up those? Like, the 2 in a row hurt them, and it basically gave Armagh a bit of energy and momentum at the right time in the game, and that's how they salvaged the draw. But those the 2 short kickouts they were bad errors from a Galway perspective.
Yeah, and having been the hero of the Connacht final, Conor Gleeson is probably again kind of in the spotlight for kind of the wrong reasons. His issues under high ball were being highlighted by Armagh in the past, ironically, and coincidentally, and those kickouts, which may not be entirely down to him. That's probably, maybe there's a team system. Maybe they say in this situation, at this stage of the match, we're going to try and go short, but it didn't work, and it just seemed like kind of a basic error and inviting trouble, didn't it?
Yeah, I was up. I was obviously in CoCom yesterday, and when we arrived, the wee boxes that sometimes you're in CoCom, it wasn't great. It wasn't conducive to great viewing. There was scaffolding, and there was a big window in the middle of it. And I, having been with Marty a few times, I sort of thought, oh, this isn't going to be good. So it took a bit. Marty, there's a few issues here. So he arrived over, and next thing, we were up on the roof with the camera, with nothing between me and the Statue of Liberty. But the one thing it did, you felt the elements. There was a strong wind yesterday, and for me, it was really strange in that Armagh in the first half didn't seem, they were sitting in a. I think that the fact that they kept Soupy Campbell in reserve, like, he had a brilliant game against Galway the previous year with his running game at them, and they kept him off. And I was thinking, are they thinking this game's going to go down the stretch, and they want to bring that pace and that running game on in the second half? Then they ended up playing with the wind, and I think they stayed with their tactics, and they sat back very deep and just looked to punch on the break and were a wee bit more standoffish. And then Galway, because they were playing against the wind, they were quite happy to hold the ball for long phases, thinking, okay, well, this is killing the game all right here. This kills the game. And they were excellent, as Wheelo says. They were excellent in possession. They worked their chances. And then in the second half, obviously, the subs came on, and you could see Armagh trying to do it. But Galway then, again, with the elements, I couldn't figure out with the type of personnel they had in the middle third. And I know Armagh had won a few, but you're still thinking, balance of risk v probability or risk v benefit, putting that out long whenever there's not an obvious easy short on, and you've got that wind, like, that ball is going to land on the far 45 in Markovic. And so to take those risks, you're 5 up, like Finity was standing over a free for them to go 6 up and dropped it short. And again, Galway missed 2 or 3 key chances at that stage. PJ referred to it afterwards, and Finity missed that to go 6 up, and within 2 minutes it was a 1. It was so Galway will be kicking themselves. They extended the lifeline to Armagh, and Armagh very gratefully received it. But from then on, Armagh deserved great credit, because the physicality suddenly that was missing in the game was there. The energy was there, and it became a massive game. And even then, Galway were still with the elements. It was still easier for Galway to try and get those winners. But Armagh suddenly then, I suppose, they'd saved their energy for 40, 50 minutes. They were bound to have good energy in the legs. And for them to come through that was brilliant. For them to work that final score was brilliant. And again, the strength in the bench, Niall was referring to, I think McGinley's work over so long, he's had his critics within the county and everyone else. I just think you look at the body of players that he has built and the injuries he's dealt with this year, and he is where he is, I think they're in a good place. But certainly they weren't good yesterday, and they still won, qualifying from the most difficult group in top place. So I think they'll be quite happy with their week off.
Okay. Running out of time, so we'll finally the one other game we'll mention then, which wasn't a pivotal game that ended in a draw. Someone actually won this one. It was Tyrone and Cork. Tyrone won 18, Cork 17 points in Tullamore. I think Cork are seen now, and I'll stick with you since we're talking about Tyrone. Cork are seen now as a bit of a sticky wicket, and Tyrone, as we've discussed all year, are a bit of a, a bag of rebels. You're not entirely sure what you're getting. So they showed a good bit of resolve, and I think we mentioned at the top, no little quality up front kind of there in that second half to get a result against Cork.
Yeah, Tyrone will be really happy with that performance. Cork are a good side, playing really good football, and the style of their football is one that Tyrone has struggled with a wee bit in the past. That really strong defensive and then really athletic counter-attacking and bringing that pace to it. They were a big challenge, and Tyrone wouldn't have a fantastic record against Cork, just one of those teams that we certainly always find a big challenge in. Tyrone, as you're saying, a wee bit all over the place, a wee bit like Mayo, a wee bit like Armagh. There's a lot of teams failing the consistency test this year. Tyrone will be very happy. For me, it was a really good performance. Your key elder statesmen are in good form. They are playing well and just immensely solid, and I think that is allowing the younger players to play with more confidence. So there's a nice mix there with Tyrone. But look, the black card was decisive in this game. There's no other way of really looking at it. If Conor Gleeson's 1-1 changed the Armagh-Galway game, then the 1-1 Tyrone got during the black card period of this one was the changing of this game. So it was a really tight game. Tyrone will take really good confidence from it. The loss of Con Kilpatrick would be a concern for the next round. I think that will carry into it, but they've got plenty of players in form. I think they won't fear Roscommon. Coming Toma, a wee bit like Mayo, Tyrone don't have a fantastic record in Healy Park. But I think they'll take great confidence from that win, because Cork are a solid side that would cause Tyrone difficulties, but there was plenty of good quality in their play, and key men are on form, and that's so important at this time of year.
And it's just a pity they didn't get Derry.
That would have been
that would have been the shot in the arm the football championship needed.
I was chatting to some of them, some of our Tyrone lads up at the club, and I was just saying, what do you think? And we both spoke, it has to be Derry, and it's just going to be Derry. It is just going to be Derry. So all conspiracy theorists will have to forget about this draw, because it just
draws are not fixed now. We know that for a fact.
No. I thought I had to get thrown, and then I seen Louth and I thought, oh God, that could be one. That could be tasty too. But it didn't happen. So there you go. Yeah. There is no fixed draw after all.
Yeah, Tyrone should go with some confidence. Welcome Roscommon in. When you've got attackers of the quality of the Cannon brothers, Darren McCurry, and your goalkeeper Niall Morgan keep the scoreboard ticking over, you don't have much to fear. The fact that he's contributing as much as he is on the scoreboard is remarkable, even in this era.
It's that level of consistency, and I thought even the weekend McCurry actually probably played it. He came out, he got on a lot of ball out around the middle of the park, and kind of, because he's a good kick pass to the ball, he can find passes, and he kind of played a different role. And then, Dara Cabin's battle with O'Mahony was top draw. In fairness, they had a great battle in the first half, and as the game grew on, Canavan probably got stronger. He's some bit of stuff, and they'd be in. You would fancy Tyrone and Healy Park if they deliver a performance. As I just said, the only caution you'd have is that Roscommon have some dangerous forwards.
Who did a lot of scoring at the weekend. Their game against Cavan was like a hurling score.
Yeah, they put up 320, and they caused Dublin plenty of problems in Croke Park as well. So that's just they just might have a little bit more quality up front. I can see it being close enough, but I think Tyrone will have enough in that one, Mikey.
Yeah. So finally, then Niall, I'll have to ask a Cork question, or Rory won't let me present the podcast anymore. It isn't like they've played a lot. It has to be said, Cork and Louth. But Louth are developing under Ger Brennan, and there was a lot to like about that Cork performance. As Whelan and Enda have said, not sure where it will be played. but it could be the tightest of the quarterfinals. I think is probably, if not an unfair assumption.
Yeah, and I'm just
preliminary quarterfinals. Apologies.
I can't remember where Louth played Kildare off the top of my head, maybe Tullamore or something. So like, it's not a new Louth nominate, don't it? So it'll be pretty close to Louth. Yeah, Cork. Listen, Chris O'Jones in the first half thought it looked like he was going to have the run of the show. The way he started, like, you know, and they're looking pretty good, but Tyrone just hung in there, and the fear in me as an Armagh man is growing all the time with this Tyrone team, because they've just shown it can come out of nowhere. They've done it before, like, but Cork, Louth, they've always been close matches too. I think Louth are firmly established as the second best team in Leinster. They've a really solid low block. Like Samuel Wright plays so deep for them now too. Like, you know, I know he's an unbelievable footballer, like, but it's amazing just to watch how deep he actually plays at time in during games. I think I've said on here before about that Louth forward line. So I think it's going to be a really big ask for Cork. Even though it's not going to be in Drogheda, obviously. I do think this Louth team's come on hard, but they're not going to get the space that Donegal hitting. Like, you know, we're used to Donegal sitting deep, but they're obviously hitting the break a couple of times down in Páirc Uí Rinn, but they're not going to get that space against Louth. Louth are going to play it pretty much how the likes of Westmeath are playing, and different teams sit low block and just frustrate. So listen, as you say, it's probably the hardest one to call on paper, like, but if it was tipping now, I'd probably go for Louth just to edge it.
Yeah, and just to mention, obviously, that we had the hurling preliminary quarterfinals, and as expected, Wexford and Cork progressed, so they'll be meeting Dublin. Cork will be meeting Dublin. Wexford are playing Clare in Semple Stadium sometime on Saturday. And the Tailteann Cup semi-finals are remaining in Croke Park on Sunday, which will keep a certain county man of yours, Niall, happy out in your new favourite county, Sligo. Okay, we'll be back on those matches, hurling and football. So don't forget to follow the RTE podcast wherever you like to listen or watch your podcast, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, etc. So thank you to Niall and to Wheelo and to Enda, and we'll chat to you soon. Good luck.
Lead by a point, and there's the whistle, it's over.